Welcome guys, today's video is going to be a bit different because I'm going to be talking about one of the main problems in the PUBG community, something that has for a long time been dividing the community and is spawning a lot of toxic behavior too. FPP versus TPP. For as long as I can remember, disrespect and even hate has been consistently flowing from FPP players towards the TPP players. TPP is being ridiculed, especially in the Western PUBG community. It is said by many to be simply for noobs and the third-person camera is just cheating. If you play TPP, you are not and never will be a good PUBG player. You are a scared camper who will always prefer to go prone in the bush or hide in a bathroom. This is not true, and in this video I'll tell you why, because some of you TPP haters out there are missing a few important points. But first, I'd like to thank NordVPN, who is the sponsor of this video. In the past, I played TPP to get lower queue times, as it was the more popular game mode. But today, the best way to get into games fast and also with few bots will be to VPN to a more popular region. And for this, I've always used NordVPN. NordVPN will allow you to quickly connect to countries outside of your region to either get faster queue times in ranked mode or simply games with more players in normal games. You can also VPN to a less popular region to get games filled with bots to make season pass missions less difficult, such as the one where you need to drive a BRDM into the top 10. It's also a great service to use if you want to view other countries' Netflix libraries, as NordVPN still works to get access to the American Netflix library, for instance. But most of all, a VPN is a great way to protect your data and browse the web anonymously, and a NordVPN subscription comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Finally, you can now get 68% off NordVPN, only $371 per month, plus you get an additional month free if you use the link nordvpn.com/wackyjackie, click it in the description, or coupon code wackyjackie. When PUBG started to gain popularity, it was TPP only. First person wasn't even a thing. Erangel, the most popular map in the history of the game, was designed for third person entirely. FPP mode got released during this explosive peak of popularity and was added due to popular demand by the Western community, including popular Western streamers and professional players. In particular, the professional scene of PUBG did need FPP, as FPP is in nature arguably more competitive. There will be more situation that comes down to aim skill and reaction time when you are in first person compared to third. This is due to the third person camera giving you the opportunity to gain information without exposing yourself, and thereby enables a pre-fired attack, which is almost impossible to defend from. A popular misconception is that FPP was the reason for the explosive growth that truthfully happened during the time where the FPP only mode got added. As I tweeted out to another PUBG player, you are assuming that the game wouldn't have increased like this in popularity without FPP. A battle royale doesn't need FPP to take off. Take Fortnite as a brilliant example of this. To this, the head of PUBG in North America, Brian Corrigan, replied, "Wackyjackie is correct. Here is some PC data from December 2017 up until today. TPP is consistently more than 80% of all matches played. This data shows it very nicely. You have the percentage of all matches on the left side of the graph. The blue area is FPP and the orange is TPP. Keep in mind that this is all games, and Asia does prefer to play TPP and also represents the majority of the player base. I think this data might come as a surprise to many. Today, only 15% of all games are played in FPP and 85% in TPP. If you're one of those players who's hoping that TPP will be removed, then that simply won't happen, and it is illogical to even suggest this. But what does make sense is to suggest region-based queues, because I guarantee you that 85% of the games in EU and NA aren't TPP. It's easy to look at the queue times and see that this is often fairly equal. On some days in EU, TPP solos, for instance, do have slightly longer queue times than FPP, meaning that there is evidence that suggests that FPP is slightly more popular in EU. It's important to understand that first person is a small portion of the games played, and the FPP community is a minority. Without TPP, it makes sense to speculate if the game would ever have gotten this popular in the first place, but that is of course pure speculation. FPP players are often very toxic towards TPP. They complain about the TPP camera and generally slower pacing of the game. I see this every time I stream TPP on my Twitch stream. People in the chat calling TPP just for noobs, a camper game, and also claiming that the TPP camera is cheating. But I will get back to that one in a moment. I think that FPP players are complaining because they simply do not understand how to play TPP properly. They run around as if they play in first person. They expect to be able to react to an attack in the same way as you can in FPP. They try to push enemies who has a superior cover advantage. They attack enemies who hold defensive positions inside buildings, but guys, you can't do this in TPP the way you can in FPP. TPP has the third person camera, so you have to play differently if you want to play aggressively. Aggressive play requires a lot more use of throwables, but there will also be times where simply not continuing with the push will be a better play. Playing in third person is more about positional advantage and gaining that positional advantage, rather than forcing your way through with raw shooting, as you can more easily do in FPP. When I play TPP, I prefer to just drive around a lot, stay at a distance to buildings and cover, and circle out the people who are moving around in the open, perhaps in a vehicle. And this gives me a highly aggressive game with a lot less risk of dying because someone had a better position. This game mode is just different and it plays differently. If you play it as FPP, then you're probably playing it wrong and you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage, and you might very well end up losing because of it. And now to the TPP camera is cheating, it's like wallhack or ESP. Yikes! You know what? Everyone in TPP has their third person camera. Everyone can see their character from the outside, everyone plays by the same rules, everyone has the same advantage. When everyone has the same chance to do this, it is completely illogical to even suggest that it is like cheating. Abilities that reveal enemies behind walls or cover are super common in online games. You have that in Rainbow Six Siege, Call of Duty Warzone, Overwatch, Rogue Company, Valorant, and so on. It is simply just one of the rules of the game mode, so stop complaining about it, adapt and deal with it. Finally, a thing that needs to be said here is that bringing others down won't make yourself look better. In fact, quite the opposite. Calling other players noobs or bad because they like something different than you is cringe and is completely unnecessary. I prefer PUBG in first-person camera. I think it's overall more fun, but that doesn't mean that I want to hate on the game mode of TPP or blame the TPP camera when I die. If you don't like TPP, don't play it. No need to hate on the 85% of the PUBG community that love playing this game mode. Let people have their fun, and you can have yours. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this. I hope you will help me and the community reduce some of this unnecessary toxicity that is happening in our community. And I'll see you guys next time.